Du-dum, 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 du-dum. Happy free agency, everybody. Hello and welcome to the Serbian Corner, a podcast about the NBA champions Denver Nuggets, hosted from the part of the world that used to know about Colorado only through the adventures of Blake Carrington and Alexis Colby. Oh, and through the laboratory of the third biggest celebrity of Serbian descent, Nikola Tesla. Free agency is something the NBA does best. It gives hope to many fan bases, most of them delusional, but the amount of clicks and likes and faves and shares and other great inventions of the 21st century is unmatched by any other sport-related product. This particular free agency has started pretty depressing for the Nuggets. First of all, we learned that Bruce Brown is not leaving the Nuggets for a full Emily from one of the better teams. He is in fact getting his bag in Indiana. 2 years, $45 million is the size of that contract, which is 3.35 times more annually compared to what the Nuggets were allowed to offer him. The second year of that contract is actually a team option, but that has nothing to do with our Denver Nuggets. Bruce might come back in a year or two, but all 6 of main Nuggets guys from last season will never play together again, sadly. In these kind of situations, the team PR usually sends a fake "thank you for your service" press clip because guys usually leave after they got a better offer elsewhere or hated their time on your team. In this particular case, where the Nuggets were not allowed by the collective bargaining agreement to match any offer above 6.7 million, and we know how much Bruce loved playing on this team and how much the fans and his teammates enjoyed his presence, I can say with 100% sincerity, thank you, Bruce. Have a wonderful career. You're a legend here forever. Then we got DeAndre Jordan returning on a minimum, a great deal, running back with a guy everybody loves. A great locker room presence that proved he can play well in 3-minute stretches, even in the NBA Finals. Then, a big shock. It's not that we didn't expect Reggie Jackson to return. He was one of the guys that was logical to return in case Bruce Brown would change scenery. But we had no idea the complete taxpayers' MLE would be needed for him to come back next season and potentially a season after that should he decide so. I'm really glad I didn't get to react live on this signing, since I was super confused and somewhat irritated. But since I've inspected all the contracts that have been given to the lead ball handlers this offseason, it looks like nobody else would fit into that exception. We'll talk about what's next for the Nuggets. Are there any other ways beside the minimum contracts to improve this roster? And after that, if times allow, we'll talk about some huge contracts we've seen signed last night. To help me break it down, I have 2 awesome guests. First, I've invited a YouTuber, an analyst for the Miroslav sport, a super popular voice in Serbia, but also worldwide among Nuggets fans. It's Cameron, aka Swipa Cam. Welcome, Swipa.
What's going on, Miroslav? Shout out to you. Shout out to DNVR. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. I'm really excited to finally have a show with you after like 3 years of doing this from my behalf. I'm not sure for how long you've been doing your stuff, but finally our worlds collided. So first of all, congrats on being ahead of the curve and locking down that YouTuber designation. I don't know about the older generations, but the generation of my kids can name more YouTubers than actors, singers, or even sport athletes. So my question to you is, was the fact that you are a Denver sports fan away in Atlanta the reason you picked YouTube as your main platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just a matter of, I had a love for the game and I wanted to be able to talk sports. And I just thought, there's just not a lot of content creators from Colorado. You don't get to see that a lot. And then literally just kind of out of nowhere in December 2020, I started the channel and I didn't really have any idea what it would look like per se. Like I knew I wanted to do it and get into it and be serious about it. But then it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then the social media and everything picked up. And really from there, it kind of just turned into its own engine. So, it really just started off as, off a whim, had a nickname, had an idea for what the show would look like, and then we just kind of did it from there, and here you are now.
Yes, and extreme popularity in Serbia, really. I mean, while I was with the DNVR crew in Sombor, I remember guys asking, like, why isn't Swipa with you guys? I mean, how can you come here without Swipa? So I hope we'll get to see you in Serbia soon.
Yeah, absolutely. I told everybody, once I hit 10K on YouTube, I'll be there. So I'm for sure going to Serbia, and I can't wait to get there.
Excellent, excellent. Also joining us today, we have a very exciting NBA podcast debutant, a guy I was trying to get on the show for a while. He is my fellow guitarist and singer, a guy who has written a bigger number of basketball-related articles than how many I've read. And let's keep this between us. I don't really read a lot, thank God for podcasts. He is the creator of awesome stat called True Plus Minus, but most importantly, one of the smartest and funniest Nuggets fans out there. It's Mr. Patrick Rasmussen. Pat, how are you doing?
Hello. Good. I'm good to go now. Can I just leave? That was perfect for me.
It's only downhill from
Just
here.
appearance. Oh, it's got to be. Well,
Pat,
thank you, Miroslav.
let me just massacre for a moment your TPM stat by saying that it is a stat you are recording for years for the Nuggets players that shows how impactful a player was in a game and consequently in a season based on the eye test and not on box score. Am I close when I say that?
Yeah, it's basically I'm trying to contextualize the plus minus stat that exists by watching each scoring play on offense, defense, or transition and seeing which players actually contributed to that, not just awarding it to everybody that's on the court. So it has things like hockey assists and free throw assists. If you get a steal that leads to points, that sort of things of that nature. And
so, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I began it in Jokic's rookie year, but oddly enough, it wasn't because of Jokic that I started it. It just happened to be serendipitous in that way. But it was because of Emmanuel Mudiay, because I wanted so badly for him to be a guy. And I got tired of know-it-alls like Adam Mares, who was at Stiffs at the time, telling me that he's not a guy, dude, just don't. So I started contextualizing this, and then I realized pretty quickly that annoyingly Adam was right as usual, and Mudiay was not a guy. He was a above average point of attack defender, I'll give him that. But that's really about it. But what I noticed the most is that Jokic was popping to the top of the TPM numbers every day, despite playing such limited minutes, which weren't even accounted for in TPM. So if you extrapolated that through the 36 minutes, I knew pretty early he was going to be an MVP level player. I didn't know that he was going to win because, as we saw this last year, sometimes that's just the guy that pisses and moans the most. So there you have it.
So since you found a way to measure Nikola Jokic's eye test, how fulfilling was it for you to watch one by one ESPN FS1 guys revise their scientific premise that Nikola isn't a great player because of his bad eye test?
It's very gratifying in the moment you send a tweet to somebody that's completely off base, and then it completely goes away because everybody just sends you comments that have nothing at all to do with either the eye test or analytics. They're casual takes is what it comes down to. But yeah, I enjoy it.
Swipa, you're also very, very big on numbers throughout your career. What were the first things you've noticed about Nikola Jokic that made you feel like, no, I need to be behind this guy 100% because we're seeing something that's completely special?
What year was that? That was probably the end of the 2017-18 year. I mean, 2015-16, when he first got his start. That obviously the San Antonio game, the 41-point versus the Knicks. Then the 2016-17 season, that's when he started on December 15th. But I remember watching, because I like Pat, I was an Emmanuel Mudiay guy. I actually knew people who knew him going into the draft. He was 6'5". He had the ability to get to the rim, the shooting mechanic kind of all over the place. But you're with time he could get there. And it never happened. And I was really disappointed. And then I remember they got Jamal. Now Jamal, 20 points per game as a freshman, only player in Kentucky history, great shooter, great scorer. When he fell to the Nuggets, I was like, man, this dude's going to be really good. And then I remember Jokic started playing, and I remember this really talented not like huge guy, but he just seemed to have like a lot of fluidity and eyesight on the court. I was a big Gary Harris guy, obviously, 2014 Michigan State, great two-way player. And I just remember, man, watching Jokic have these moments versus these historically really good players or like these really good teams, and then obviously making an all-rookie team, and then going into the next year. I think by the time Jokic averaged 18, 10, and 6, I think that was his the 2017-18 year. Yeah, I was just like, wow, like this is just something different. And especially at the time, that stat line, because that's something that Sabonis just did 18, 12, and 6. But like the efficiency, the way his game was morphing and how he was adjusting, how he was leading, it was just a lot different. And I liked him. I thought he could be an all-star player at some point. But I think, obviously Jokic becoming an MVP level player. I mean, 2018-19, he finishes 4th in the MVP voting. And, in your mind, I'm like, maybe this is something he can ascend to. But as y'all remember the season of 1920, when he came in that year, he was averaging like 16 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Just kind of messing around. He was out of shape or whatever else. So then he lost all that weight in the bubble. And really ever since then, man. So, his PR numbers were always super high. And then like all the box plus minus, the advanced stats were always telling the story. But then you didn't start seeing that actually become like, oh, this is legit until his first playoff. And then he averages 25, 13, and 8. And you're just like, yeah, I think this dude is something different,
Yeah, if only your PR is high, that might mean that you're Boban Marjanovic. But if you have all of those advanced stats on your side, there must be something cooking. And
Right.
Of course, we were right for so many years, and so many other were wrong. Okay, enough chit chat. It's time to tackle the what we saw last night. So let's start with Brucey B. We all hoped he'd stay, even though we all put our brave faces and said it's not probable. I'm glad he didn't end up on the Lakers or any other Western Conference teams, really. He went to Indiana to play with a talented but still too young of a team to seriously compete. Swipa, what was your initial reaction when we finally got the confirmation that Bruce is leaving us?
Yeah, I mean, the Pacers were one of my team I thought might throw an offer at him because him next to Hallie and Vinny, Mathurin, nobody knows who that is, I thought would be a good fit. He's a great kind of wedge player that can do a lot of different things. But when I heard like maybe an hour before free agency that it was going to be upward of 20, and then I saw the numbers and he gets a 2-year deal for 45 with the second option, it's a team option on the second year. Man, I was just like, yeah, at that point, you got to take that money, right? That's $7 million more than you made at any point in time in your career combined. And you get a chance to do it for 2 years, and then you get to prove yourself, basically take the Jeremy Grant gamble, which has worked out for him. I think I was just really, really ecstatic for him that he was managing to, from last offseason, not really getting any calls because people thought he just wouldn't fit anywhere. And now, making more money than Aaron Gordon did this last year, you just got to be happy for him. And obviously you're sad that he's not going to be with the Nuggets, but, as a man and as somebody who wants to provide for his family, I mean, I was ecstatic that he got that much money. So I'm really happy for Bruce.
Yes, and I've heard this comparison to Jeremy Grant before. It's just the big difference here is that the Nuggets could afford Jeremy. He didn't want to stay here, and Brucey would definitely stay here if the Nuggets could, even closely match what
Right.
the Pacers did. So really good for him. Pat, how I mean, did you feel better when you found out it was the Pacers and not like the Mavs or Timberwolves?
100%. I never thought that the Lakers or the Mavs were in play, to be honest. I thought he was either getting a whole lot of money or he was coming back to Denver. I didn't think anyone was going to get him with that TPE. I was the only take you can really have is that you're happy for Bruce because he was never coming back to Denver at that number. I mean, Denver wasn't getting anybody at what was available, as it turns out. So I'm just happy for Bruce.
Yeah, it really felt realistic for him to come back while all of us were drunk. Like it wasn't like him or Michael Malone. All of us were drunk. So yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Don't make it's like that saying, don't make a phone call to your ex while you're drunk. So yeah,
Please don't.
I guess. So are we gonna follow the Pacers more often now that we have our guy over there? Or is it too far away
I
in
think
the other conference?
follow Bruce. Yeah, I think he's going to come back and get a huge ovation when he gets his ring on, whenever that happened. But I think, he doesn't quite have the same effect, obviously, Gary. When Gary went to Orlando, I've been basically following Orlando pretty closely. Now, also, I like their team, I like their coach and stuff as well. But I think Gary kind of has that, I think he has that effect on us. I think he's going to, for me, be in like a little bit more elevated Torrey Craig role where I would just kind of support him at all times. Like I want him to do well, but I think for Bruce, man, he had a chance to really like prove everybody wrong and say, not only am I worth this money, better believe I'm going to get another contract after this for something like this, So I'm going to be really, really hoping that he continues to prove all the doubters wrong.
Yeah, hopefully he will stay in Indiana for the second season, so he could, build up his future contracts as well, not to have to wait from for a team that has a cap space in order for him to get paid. Really, really good on him. I'm really glad. Pat, do you have any closing thoughts on Brucey?
Well, I'm an absolute homer. I'm not even a fan of the NBA. I can't stand the product that is the NBA. So I watch very few games that the Nuggets are not playing. But I'll watch some Bruce games, just like I watch Monte, that kind of thing.
Okay, it is time for our first break, so don't go anywhere. Segment 2 here. I believe we first learned that DJ is returning. It was so much more of a positive reaction from the Nuggets fans compared to the same notification last year. So before we get to the bigger contract that was signed soon after, Pat, what was your initial reaction to DJ coming back?
Well, it's a kind of a tale of 2 years. Last year it was a no-brainer, as in, where is your brain? And then as we learned through the season, he was invaluable to the bench success, just as a locker room presence and a leader. So this year it's a no-brainer in the other direction. You got to do it, especially if they don't get Jeff.
Yeah. Swipa. So more triple kisses on the cheek with Jokic are secured now. Do you think this was the right move for the team?
Yeah, I mean, a very low cost opportunity. And I think, as Pat said, the leadership and even his fun, just being fun and being a comrade for the team. And I think his energy, his soul, his heart, what he brought to this team was really important. And then, he offered a lot of leadership on the bench for a lot of guys as well. So, yeah, I think that more than made sense. And, we'll see what happens with Jeff Green. But, I'm glad that at least have one of their veterans coming back for sure.
I said this several times before that I'm sorry to DJ. I wasn't really familiar with his game, as Shaq would say. I really didn't know what he brings to the team. And now I'm no longer sorry. I'm just happy to see him with us. He's the only guy I could possibly think of replacing him with would be Boban Marjanovic, who is one of Nikola's best friends in America. But DJ is absolutely on the same level of ratings. And hopefully he'll find some Hollywood roles similar to Boban as well. That would be really, really awesome. Hollywood needs more huge guys. Okay, so it's time to let the cat out of the bag. When I saw Reggie's coming back, my first reaction was that was expected. But when I saw that 2-year, $10.25 million contract with a player option, no less, I was in a shock. Luckily, we've learned last year I shouldn't doubt Calvin Booth's competence, so I just tweeted the fact that it was the whole mini MLE that was used on Jackson without comment. I told to myself, let's wait for 12 hours. Let's let things settle. But when I browsed through the signed contracts for the ball handlers we thought might be gettable for the Nuggets, Dennis Schroeder got the full MLE. Javon Carter got $6.7 million. Shake Milton got 5. Vasa Micic, who finally came from EuroLeague to OKC Thunder, got 8 million from them. Even Pat's secret Santa Joe Ingles got 11. Jingles. So notable guys that got less than 5 are Seth Curry, Troy Brown Jr., Josh Richardson. Are any of them really better than Reggie Jackson, better fit than Reggie Jackson? Maybe, probably not. Swipa, were you disappointed last night, and did it change since?
Well, I think it's very common knowledge that I was a Nikola Alexander Walker guy. I made that very clear. So watching him get 4 years, $9 million, granted, he's going to be in a really good situation where he's going to be really dependent upon. Reggie, I'm a big fan, obviously, of Colorado and all that stuff. But Reggie is just not the traditional kind of guard that Calvin has seemingly prioritized, like a defensive-minded guard. But again, Reggie's a good player. He had a really good year with the Clippers when Kawhi and PG were out. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. Maybe in off-season, training camp, he gets an opportunity to really learn the system and what the Nuggets are wanting to do and how they play basketball. And maybe he can make a really significant contribution. But I'm not as high on that. I am a little skeptical on that because I've seen Reggie Jackson play so much. But who knows? Maybe with a bigger team around him, a bigger second unit, and then, Jalen Pickett and Colin Gillespie right now are behind him. Again, maybe he has like one of his best seasons that he's had, especially off the bench. So I'm going to give him, obviously, the benefit of a doubt. But off the first initial reaction, 2 years with a player option, yeah, that seemed like a lot for Reggie. So, we'll see.
So Pat, Reggie Jackson was a really good NBA player up to 2 years ago, approximately. And of course, he had a bit of a decline after that. That might have been bad situations for him, on the Clippers and the Nuggets for the last couple of months. But do you expect a significant jump from him? Or do you think that this kind of deal actually tells us something different from the front office?
It's a good question. I don't know if I expect a jump from familiarity. I think that Booth is banking on one of two things: either that jump, or he sees a lot in Gillespie and Pickett. Especially, I think Pickett. Honestly, the more I've thought about this, I think it's kind of like the DJ signing last year. It's a guy to fill out the bench that's not incredibly expensive, and I think Pickett's going to be the guy sooner rather than later.
When Nuggets
lost
lost
a little more money than he should have gotten, but
yeah, sure. But on the other hand, his contract might now be very useful for a future trade. We have now 2 contracts, and we'll speak about it more in depth later. But we have Zeke Naji and we have Reggie Jackson at about between 4 and 5 million per year, which is pretty good stuff for adding to get some kind of a guy on a medium level kind of contract that might help. One thing that I was thinking about when we lost Bruce Brown is, okay, so how can we replace Bruce now? We've been talking about stuff like, okay, let's use 2 guys, one guy for ball handling and the other guy for defense, stuff like that. But the reality is, Bruce Brown was really essential for the Nuggets because he was the real 6th starter. He was the guy that could have played in place of any of the 5 guys that were starting. The only thing we didn't see in the regular season was him playing instead of Jokic, and we saw that in playoffs. So he really was a certified 6th starter. And, in Europe, nobody would even speak about him not being a starter or not, because in Europe, being a starter is not a thing. So, Swipa, do you think that internal progress of the team could help Denver cross this bridge of quality they've lost? Or maybe there is a guy you have highest hope for to take on the role of Bruce Brown next year?
Yeah,
or going forward?
It's a good question. I'm looking at immediately Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Jalen Pickett, and really, you got to see if Strother or Zeke one of those kind of players can step in, and maybe even Colin, and give you a different kind of game, but offer you similar stability and reliance. You want, when you're at that level, you want your top 6 or 7 and 8 players really to be extremely reliable. So, but it's hard to do that when you're young. So Christian is going to do that. He did that. Now you're asking Peyton Watson or Jalen Pickett or maybe Zeke or Vlatko to basically take on roles that are pretty elevated for where they are currently in their career. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. I mean, again, I love Peyton Watson. I mean, I made defensive highlights for him versus when he played with the Rockets versus the Warriors versus the Jazz, the Suns. He just has it. But can he put it together soon enough and in the right way for the Denver Nuggets to be able to utilize at a very high level to be a top 8 guy by the time the playoffs roll around? So, again, that's development. That's a year away from now. So maybe he gets there. But those are the names that I'm most looking at internally.
Pat, do you have your pick of somebody internally who could, help the Nuggets bridge the gap?
Yeah, the two that I want to be the ones that step up the most are obviously Watson and Brown, because they're going to have the biggest up. Well, Brown's upside maybe not as high, but Watson's upside is enormous. And if they take a leap, then we're just fine. I mean, Bruce Brown was big, but he can be replaced in that way. But the guy that I think a lot of people are forgetting about is Zeke. I mean, in the last 2 years, we brought in 6 rookies, and he's still the 3rd youngest player on the team. So with some time to actually get some reps, if he stays healthy, he could be a huge guy for us.
Just because of the positional versatility, I would kind of like to bet on Christian Brown. Maybe that's the reason why they want to bring him to the summer league, just to give him the key of the offense, like try play as many pick and rolls, try to initiate as many offenses as possible. And I know he cannot get to the Bruce Brown level of playmaking in 1 year. That's crazy to ask from such a young guy. I mean, he's not that young, really. He's like 23 now, right?
Yeah.
So he's like 3 years younger than Bruce Brown. It's not like he can be his father. So if Christian Brown could make that kind of leap to be closer to Bruce Brown, and then if P. Watt would make a kind of a leap to emulate what Christian Brown was doing this year, only with a bigger length, that would be probably like the best case scenario. Now, these best case scenarios usually never happen because, you're asking a lot of stuff from your youngest guys. So that's why I kind of think relying more on Vlatko might help because, he can play mostly from 3 to 5 in different kind of lineups. So he might help bridge that gap as well. But it's an interesting kind of dynamic. And
yeah,
I would really love to get that kind of level of player.
Yeah, I'm really trying to figure out what Vlatko's going to do because he's played really well in stretches. Then he would get injured and then not come back and play well. So he's going to have to play consistent, and they're going to have to be able to rely on him and his body. So maybe Vlatko can do it. He's really talented, but, talent only means so much if we can only use it every other game. So I think he needs to be healthy, and they need to be able to see like a full run from him. And I think that, that would determine a lot for them going forward.
Yeah, the only thing I think Vlatko is missing there is that explosiveness that Bruce Brown was bringing to the team. Vlatko is like a even-keeled guy that makes 0 mistakes and always do the right thing. It's just that he cannot be on offense on his own like Brucey B tended to do, from time to time on the Nuggets. Okay, it is time for our second break. After we return, we'll talk about what's next for the Nuggets. Okay, PowerPoint time. Who doesn't like a nice slideshow? So, Nuggets team payroll in Comic Sans. After we got that big contract for Reggie Jackson, I saw a tweet from Jake Coyne, who is our dedicated cap space guy, and he said something to the strength that the Nuggets still have some room on their cap sheet not to cross to the second apron hellhole. So these are the guys the Nuggets already have locked in, and I've put Julian Strother on this list as well because he's a first-round pick. I would be shocked if he wasn't signed to a regular contract this season. So we see Nikola Jokic with huge 47.6 million, Jamal Murray 33.8, Michael Porter 33.4, Aaron Gordon 22, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope almost 15, and then we get these two kind of middle-level contracts from Reggie Jackson and Zeke Naji, and then all the other guys are under 3 million. Actually, DeAndre Jordan is something like 3.1 million, but his cap hit is much lower because he's a veteran. So this is the way the league is helping teams sign veterans. So total of these 12 guys on the list is $172.5 million, which is just a bit under 10 million under the second apron. Now, Nuggets need to sign at least two more guys on regular contracts. They can roll with 14 guys and then sign 15 guy next to the near the playoffs, or never do actually, because it's legal to have only 14 guys. So it's either two guys or three guys that are supposed to spend up to $9.9 million. Let's say it like that. So we all expect, I believe, Jeff Green to be re-signed. That would be another 2.1 million, something like that, on the cap sheet. And then it's the question whether the Nuggets want to give the regular contract spot to J Pick, maybe even to Tyson Hunter. I would bet that Tyson Hunter gets the two-way contract. Either way, I don't know about J Pick. What are your feelings about whether J Pick will get the full contract or not for this season?
I mean, they might have to. Is he going to be? So Ish Smith last year was their third point guard. So if Reggie's their second, who's their third? It's going to be probably Colin or Jalen. So I do think that if Jalen is able to beat out Colin in camp and prove his value this season, I don't know if you have any other choice but to put him on your active roster, which means you have to activate him.
Pat, what are
Yeah,
your feelings?
I think you definitely got to give him the full contract. You're going to need him, and more than anything, you're going to need him to develop. We've got so few veterans that are playing above these young guys that we got to have as many of them on. Not maybe this year's rookies, except for Pickett, need to be on standard contracts. And I've heard conflicting reports about the two-way deals. Aren't Jack White and Colin Gillespie already on them? A lot of people aren't mentioning that, but I thought I heard that last week.
I have no information on that. There was the saying that Colin Gillespie signed a 2-year, two-way contract, but I never saw that officially. And almost nobody is mentioning Jack White right now, which is kind of I'm not happy about that. I really like that guy.
Yeah.
So basically, if the Nuggets would stay at 14 guys, if Jeff is 13 and J Pick is 14, that's it. That's the whole roster. If they sign a 15th guy, that guy could earn up to $5 million for one season. And I just need to say this to give due diligence to that, to say that the Nuggets actually can use that Monty Morris traded player exception to get those $5 million. It's just the question that would leave them with zero wiggle room come the trade deadline and the buyout market and stuff like that. So I'm actually not expecting them to do anything to bring anybody else outside of the roster. If they would go for a $5 million guy, is there a guy that's still not unsigned that you would like to see?
I mean, I'm trying to think in my head. I mean, Kelly Oubre, Jalen McDaniels. I mean, one of those types of players. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot right now that you trust. But, yeah, I mean, there's flyers that you for sure could take, a chance on. But Yeah, I mean, outside of those couple of names, Dennis Smith Jr. even went last night.
Yeah.
And I figured, Dennis Smith Jr. might just be like a little bargain bin player you can go grab, but the Nets went and got him. So right now, ball handling is at its peak. If you can dribble the ball, penetrate, shoot, play some D, you can make some money. If you're Dennis Schroeder, you can make $14 million basically. So, yeah.
It appears that NBA teams have figured out that they really need guys that can really do everything with the ball. It's not like we've been drafting one and done guys for far too long. We have zero ball handlers on our teams. We need to pay up these guys, which is a really cool wrinkle on what the league is doing. So if we now go to the depth chart, this is how it looks like right now. So we have the starters locked. That's good. In the second unit, we have Reggie Jackson, Christian Brown, Peyton Watson, Zeke Naji. I still have Vlatko Čančar here because Jeff Green is not signed yet officially. I mean, he's not signed. And then for the third string, we have Jalen Pickett, Julian Strother, Jeff Green. That might go to second line, of course. DeAndre Jordan. And then if we get those guys on two-way contract, Colin Gillespie and Hunter Tyson, like in the depth piece of this. So would you guys like to see somebody that can play the three signed on the team, or is like Jeff Green's versatility enough to plug it here? In case one of Michael Porter and Peyton Watson cannot play for like a month or something like that.
Personally, I'm of the mind that they shouldn't bring Jeff back at all. I like DJ in that mentor role. I think Jeff is just too tempting for Moch to play. And we got to see what we've gotten. Not only the two guys that we drafted this year and the two guys we drafted last year, but we got to give Vlatko and Zeke a chance. And if Jeff's there, he's in the way. The only person was that I would maybe consider as a forward signing is McDaniels, because I don't mind him playing ahead of one of those guys, maybe ahead of Vlatko.
Isn't he like restricted free agent?
I'm not certain about his availability.
Yeah, I'm kind of thinking he is. And that's why he's unlikely to be moved from Minnesota. But I might be wrong.
No,
because...
I mean the one in Philadelphia.
Oh, sorry. Jalen. The Jalen.
Yeah, we're never getting Jalen.
Okay. That's that was
and Philly's in such flux right now. They may have to just completely ignore him right now. They may be working on a big trade,
Okay. Swipa, what do you think about this conundrum on the three?
It's just Vlatko's health. That's the biggest question. Can he stay healthy? Great body, wonderful body, right? Like, built like Superman. But he has some Achilles in him as well. And so you just want him to be able to stay healthy, especially with the brand of basketball that the Nuggets play, which is up and down, guarding up and down, all that kind of stuff. So, I do think that relying on Peyton, who I think will work, but he's also he's a baby, like he's young, and then having to rely on both Vlatko and then Zeke to play heavy minutes and stay healthy, that just seems like a little bit of a risk. But maybe Julian Strother, maybe they just think he's ready. Maybe Christian Brown, they're just like, no, it's him. So we'll have to see. But like I said, my first impression of it is don't love it. Don't love the risk factor that's associated there.
Calvin Booth really forced the hand of Michael Malone in these last two seasons, drafting 6 guys and saying, I don't know what to tell you, man. You have so many rookies to play. You need to play somebody. So maybe we can work something out. I mean, J Pick working out would be just amazing if you could get a reliable second option on a point guard, behind Jamal Murray. That would be awesome for the regular season, at least. I'm not sure if his game will be able to translate to playoffs, considering he is a bit of on a smaller side, probably. But yeah, I agree. This gaping hole on the 3 might be big because you need to be able to give Michael Porter a 1 month rest at some point in the season if he gets banged up. Let him, heal up properly and be well. And let's not then rely for 36 minutes of Peyton Watson. I mean, that would be amazing if it would happen, as a positive thing, but I'm not sure about it. I mean, maybe Strother can play some 3 as well. I'm a bit scared from him not really being a ball handler. That might be a minus, but who knows? I mean, NBA is a mess. It's possible that you can actually survive through the regular season playing some clunky lineups, especially on the bench.
Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
No, sorry, you wanted to say.
Yeah, I think I agree. Again, a lot of this is just leading up to the playoffs, and how do you maximize your talent by emphasizing rotations and having those rotation players set in from the beginning. And again, doing that and then having some risk factor in there. And I love Porter. I'm a big Porter guy. But again, you don't know with Porter, ankle injury, 13 games missed, COVID, 10 games missed, or Lord willing, it doesn't happen again. But if you have a back flare up, and then you got Peyton, Blocko, Zeke, that's just a lot of risk in there. But maybe this is also, y'all, they're just giving a simple nod to Michael Porter Jr. that, look, medical's been great. You were great this year. No concerns whatsoever. He just turned 25. Hey, Porter, this is your chance. Now you have an opportunity to get a full off season, a bunch of rest, leading after winning a championship. You dunked on Kevin Durant. Hey, you have an opportunity to go into the year and make your all-star bid as a forward. And maybe he gets back to that. I know y'all remember the 2020-21 Michael Porter, that last half of the year when Jamal Murray goes out, 23.5 points per game, 7 rebounds, 50, 50, 80 shooting splits. Maybe you get that from Porter, and all this doesn't matter. Because it's like, who cares? Just put Porter out there. He's great. Now, and the two-way player, Miroslav, is real, right? Maybe what we saw in the playoffs and in the finals, it's real. That's a two-way monster. But I'm saying, in case that's not it, might be good to add another wing you trust. That's all I'm saying.
Now, you made a really interesting point here. You said Michael Porter should hunt for an all-star season. And I think we can all agree that Jamal Murray is probably locked in as an all-star next season, just based on the stuff, the fact that he was probably the second best player in the playoffs altogether, when you look at it from this perspective. But if we just say, let's play a game. Let's say who will earn the second all-star place on the Nuggets the most next season, if you would have to bet. Now, as I said, Jamal is probably going to get it, but between us, who do you expect to have the best season up to the all-star weekend out of Gordon, Porter, and Jamal Murray?
The guy that's going to be looking for a Supermax contract, probably.
Yeah, that sounds like a very safe bet. What do you think, Pat?
Maybe we could be like a storied, historic franchise like Memphis, and we'll get 3 guys in, or Sacramento. That's what I'm hoping.
Hey, remember Detroit got 4 guys in the 04 year when they had Chauncey, Rasheed, Rip, and Ben Wallace in there. And then the 2015-16 Atlanta Hawks had 4 guys in there as well. But I doubt the Nuggets did that.
No, I know. I'm making a joke about
4.
Memphis.
The Warriors had 4 too. Steph, Clay, Draymond, and KD one of those years.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, those teams deserved it, especially Detroit and Golden State. Atlanta, maybe not. Memphis, definitely not.
I don't think it's realistic to get 4 All-Stars because, we barely have one guy who is a second-team All-NBA.
Second-team All-NBA.
So
NBA
what's he going to do?
Right.
I don't know how they did it, but I guess NBA just sucked last season. That's why such a bad team
Wow,
won a
apparently.
championship. Okay. It is time for our last break. It is time to discuss some latest moves and trade requests. All right, final segment here. So first of all, as I mentioned previously, Vasa Micic Serbian EuroLeague legend, is coming across the pond. He signed a 3-year, $23 million contract with the Thunder. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch his career develop here, because he is a 2-time EuroLeague MVP. He's not the last season's EuroLeague MVP. That's Sasha Vezenko, who actually got signed by Sacramento. So that should be also one interesting thing to monitor. Some of the EuroLeague MVPs are Nemanja Bjelica or Boban Marjanovic, and some EuroLeague MVPs are Luka Doncic. Now, I'm not promising you Vasa Micic to be Luka Doncic level. When he comes here, he is a bit older. He's, I believe, 28. He should be the same
29
age,
now.
or mid 29. Yeah, a bit older than Nikola Jokic. So he's not brought here to become a superstar in the NBA, but he should be able to play a really, really good rotation minutes on the OKC. And OKC is really one of the most interesting thing to watch next season as well, especially with Chet Holmgren hopefully coming back to the competition and stuff like that. So that's one interesting signing we've seen. But more importantly, Damian Lillard, that fortress of loyalty, requested a trade to the Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat. How brave of him. Pat, I'm going to let you cook on this one.
I don't know if you want that. Dame is going to make them better. I'm just so sick of the Dame saga. Every single year, I have to mute Chris Haynes just because of Damian Lillard. It's just, I want it to be over. I hope he goes to Miami so we don't have to deal with it very often. He's going to make them a much better team than they are. He might be exactly what they need, but I'm just glad they're in the Eastern Conference.
Swipa, it's interesting that I think that the Portland will get the worst possible deal if they trade to Miami, right? Like nobody can twist their arm better than Miami.
Yeah, I mean, Tyler Hero, maybe Duncan Robinson. They don't want to put Caleb Martin in the deal. Haywood, Highsmith, Kyle Lowry, a couple first-round picks. Yeah, it's not great. But at the end of the day, they also said to Dame, like, look, we'll work with you if you want to get this done type deal. And so, he gave him, what was that, 9-10 seasons, basically. So, and they also didn't do a good job building around him. So maybe they feel like they owe him something a little bit. But if I'm them, I'm not even tripping, because you know what? I got Scoot Henderson, Shaden Sharp, and Anthony Simons to build around. I really don't want more guards. If anything, Tyler Hero comes to me, I'm rerouting him somewhere else, because I don't want him, respectfully, I don't think he's a better prospect for me than Shaden, Anthony, or Scoot. So I don't want him taking any time from them. And if I can get some more draft picks for Tyler Hero, or maybe even a young big we can build around, then I would much rather prefer that. So I think that there's really still a path for them to be able to get Dame assets and then ship Tyler off if they do get that asset, and then get more stuff for him. So they could actually still end up coming up very well, maybe similar to Utah when they got rid of Rudy and Donovan, but not as quite as high of a package, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, you can say that Portland was building badly around him, and it's probably in the last 5 seasons, it's mostly Nurkic, because Nurkic and Dame pick and roll, that was just a nightmare for their defense. No, they couldn't find a scheme that would effectively defend with those two guys. And of course, when Dame switch sides, when he goes to another team, then we will see if that other front office will also do a bad job around him, meaning that Dame is really not
He's going to be with Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, Miroslav.
No, I think that's a really good situation for him. I agree with that. But on the other hand, if he let Portland sign Jeremy Grant to $160 million before he requested the trade, now they could say, okay, but we'll not ship you to Miami. We'll ship you to Brooklyn, because Brooklyn has so many wonderful picks for us, and we want to rebuild completely. I mean, it's not out of realm of possibility to say, come on, Dame, it's a wonderful city. It's New York. What more can you ask from us? We didn't feel the package from Miami, but this package is wonderful. And actually, Brooklyn might have a lot of stuff around Dame, even if they trade, most of their picks there.
Yeah, Pat. I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was Damian Lillard, I would look them right back in the face. Because the second best player you ever gave me was LaMarcus Aldridge, and that aged out quickly. And then you gave me C.J. McCollum and Aminu and Mo Harkless and all that kind of stuff. Nurkic, like, what did you want me to do with this? Oh, wait. So I got to go beat Jamal Murray, Jokic, Bron, Anthony Davis, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, Chris Paul, all these teams. And he's like, hey, what do you want me to do about this? At least De'Aaron Fox got some bonus. C.J. McCollum, that's probably what I would say back it up,
And just to clarify, I'm not blaming Dame at all. He needs to get the hell out of there. But you're right. They've been putting nothing but small, non-defensive guards around him. He's never had a good defensive two guard. They had Josh Hart, but they had to play him at the small forward because they have free assignments.
I mean, they did try some stuff. They did have Matisse Thybulle and Jeremy Grant around him this time around. Before that, we've said, Farouk Aminu and stuff. Guys like that. I mean, there were singular defenders around him all the time, but
they were just missing a man in the middle.
Man in the middle was really, really bad, at least for the last 5 years, for sure. Okay, so Houston Rockets got Fred VanVleet.
Oh.
I'm kidding. Nobody cares about Houston this season. I mean, what is going to be our takeaway from this? So what is he supposed to do with Houston this season?
Miroslav, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And Pat, so he signed a 3-year, $133 million deal, which is roughly 41, I think is what it ended up coming out to. Jamal Murray's up for a 3-year, 144 this summer. What do you think? If you're Jamal, do you sign that, or you want to take a chance and see if you can make All-NBA next year?
Go ahead. Okay. Well, I think he bets on himself. I honestly do. That's just who Jamal is. He's going to try to get into that All-NBA territory.
Yeah, and I think that Denver will do right by him no matter what.
Agreed.
Even if, God forbid, something happened to him during this season, they will still give him a max contract in a year. I mean, there's no fuss about it. So, yeah, I think he should bet on himself, and Denver should hope for the league to increase that cap space because they're going to be so effing expensive in a couple of years. It's going to get ugly at some point, but let's enjoy these following 2 seasons before it goes that way, for sure. So the Lakers got Gabe Vincent.
Yep.
Another undersized guard for the Lakers, but what you going to do? But they also got, and I spoke to Pat about this before the show, they got Reeves dirt cheap. Like, what was it? 4 years, 54 million, something like that. Like, nobody bid on Austin Reeves after the playoffs he's had with the Lakers. Nobody offered 480. What's that? Is that possible? Are there some shenanigans behind all that?
Yeah, he got 4 years, 56. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're 29 franchises scared to bid on Austin Reeves because Clutch would make some kind of, retaliations against them. What's that?
Yeah, I think they just, I don't know. I think team knew he was re-signing with them. They just didn't make a lot of great offers on him. And so I think the Lakers are just able to get him cheap because I think sometimes when teams put out through the media that no matter what, we're going to match this offer. So you might as well not even go ahead and send nothing his way. So it could have been some of that. Austin's a great player, but he's also like a role player, just like Rui Hachimura is. He has a role he fills as a scorer, a pick and roll threat, off-ball shooter at times, not great defensively, and that's who he is. But he's very efficient at what he does. So I don't really know if he's even worth more than that. So honestly, I think they got him on a fair deal, and I think, I don't know who was thinking Austin was going to get $100 million, but he's a good player. But I mean, Cameron Johnson got 102.
Yeah, that's right. And Dennis Schroeder got the same exact deal as Austin Rivers, only on a smaller number of years. So
I couldn't believe that. They're thinking about starting Scotty Barnes at point guard, apparently, by the way.
It's not a great situation for Darko Rajakovic, new coach
Mhm.
of Toronto Raptors. I hope they will find a way to sign another point guard there. We'll see. Okay, Phoenix Suns signed some borderline rotation guys like Nuggets legend Keita Bates Diop, Chimetsi Metu, Yuta Watanabe. They still need to trade away Ayton, right?
What do they
Well,
get for him though? They need
yeah.
another center in return, and who was that guy? Nurkic?
Right. $35 million. Maybe Frank Vogel can turn Ayton into something. They need him like in the worst way because that's going to be rough. But I think Yuta Watanabe, I think it's actually going to be really good for them. Shot 51% on corner threes this year. Keita Diop has nice defensive measurables, but we've seen not like a great player. Then Josh Okogie, they're a bunch of guys. So, but again, is their top four, if they're healthy, they're going to be a lot to deal with just because they have three great pull-up shooters and they can get to the rim, fairly easy as well. So they're going to be a tough out, whoever has to play them.
Pat?
Yeah, I think Phoenix and LA are very similar in that in comparison to the rest of the league, they both got better yesterday, for sure. I just don't see them addressing the elephant in the room, and that's the Denver Nuggets. How do you stop the two-man game of Murray and Jokic?
Okay, last question for tonight. Guys like Draymond, Kyrie, Cam Johnson, Chris Middleton, Kyle Kuzma, Jakob Pertl, all got huge contracts to stay with their teams. Can you find the worst contract out of those? Like, who got overpaid the most out of these guys?
Not including Fred VanVleet?
Well, he changed the scenery. He went to a rebuilding team. But these guys all got a lot of, and you can actually add Brook Lopez to that as well. He got like 2 years, 48, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Right.
That's crazy. It's probably somebody else was bidding for him. But all of these guys I mentioned, except for Jakob Pertl, got $100+ million just to say on their teams. Like, Kyle Kuzma is the youngest here, and Cam Johnson, I guess, they're on the younger side. Well, Kyle Kuzma is not that young, really. He's like 27, 28.
But a scoring two-way wing, you can at least make sense. He averaged over 20 points a game, decent shooter, play, 3 through 5 in lineups, can guard 2 through 5 at times. But Jakob Pertl, $20 million a year, I just thought that was insane. And I thought that Masai Ujiri overpaid for two players and Dennis Schroeder and Jakob because he had to. They so badly want this core to work with OG, Pascal, and Scotty that they're just like throwing money at it. But for me, $20 million a year for Jakob, who is not a good offensive player, good offensive rebounder, but he doesn't have like any skill set beyond a push shot he can get to at times. He's a good defender, but Draymond's making 25. I'd much rather have Draymond at 25 for 4 years than Jakob at 4 for 80. But that's just me.
Yeah, I think the worst thing about that contract is the length. I mean, if he got like 2 years, 40 million, like whatever, you can trade away that contract if it doesn't work. But 4 years, 80. Pat.
I think Pertl's one of those guys. It's like that car that you sunk a lot of cost into, and you either get rid of it altogether or you might as well just spend the money, fix it up, and hope that it's going to work. They put too much into that trade for him. They kind of had to do it. In general, I think this free agency, unlike most I've ever seen, every single person got overpaid. It doesn't seem like anybody got less than they deserved. So I think that's just how it's going to be. You're going to have to develop. You're going to have to draft these second rounders. You're going to have to get low contracts.
So with the stuff we already seen in this offseason so far, who would be the top 4 Western Conference teams in your opinions?
Well, James Harden sounds like getting traded to the Clippers. So I'm probably going to say Nuggets, Clippers, Suns, Lakers, fully healthy everybody.
In the regular season, are you talking about? Or
yeah, just the first 4 seeds, yeah.
I think the Suns are going to be very good in the regular season. I think they're definitely number 2. Yeah, I think I would go with the Clippers number 3, but it's just so hard to bet on them with all the injuries they deal with. Got to put the Lakers at 4, but it's the same thing. How healthy are AD and LeBron?
I'm higher than you guys on Sacramento. I think Sacramento did some really nice things already, and I think they will definitely be top 4 seed because they're young. They have a lot of energy. They don't have a lot of injury problems, at least not for now. So Sacramento and Denver, I would put them there. Phoenix probably because they have so much firepower. Even when one of those guys is down, the other two can still light it up. And I don't know, man. I mean, I like Swipa's angle on the Clippers. It's just that like I'm waiting for them for 4 years, and like, is James Harden really gonna change that much their destiny? I don't know. I mean, he might. He might. He's a really, really good regular season player. He can give you 20 and 10 every night, no problem about it. Yeah, maybe you might be right about them. I'm actually I don't know, man. I don't know who to be higher on, Lakers and the Clippers, because I hate both equally. I mean, I hate Lakers more, but I don't know. It's
was that before you became associated with Denver? Did you not like the Lakers, or?
Oh yeah, it's because Lakers robbed Sacramento back in 2002.
So the rest.
Ever since then, I actually used to be kind of a Laker fan back when Vlade was playing there for his like first what was 5 seasons, something like that. But I was really a Vlade fan. I wasn't a Lakers fan, so that saves my soul a bit. But after that 2002, I just got this swear enemy in the Lakers for me. So yeah, that's the way I roll. So guys, before we leave, do you have something you want to plug?
I got a couple things.
Sure.
First thing being, everybody needs to listen to the music of Pink Floyd because it enhances your life. It enhances the life of your family. If you do it right, it enhances the life of everyone around you in your neighborhood. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, I think you can see this aquarium here has a goldfish in it that I adopted last week. Way too big for the aquarium. I need to get him a home. So if you're in the Denver area and you have a bigger aquarium or like a garden pond and you need a friend, I got a goldfish to give you. So hit me up on Twitter, PR Morphine.
So that goldfish is actually like Jokic growing to the size of the ball, right?
He's perfect analogy. That's exactly who he is. I think I got a name for him finally.
Swipa, do you have something cooking for this?
Yeah. First off, shout out to Miroslav. Great job hosting as always. Big fan. Shout out to DNVR, obviously, Mile High Sports, everybody. Got some stuff on the way, definitely for sure. Got some great content coming out for everybody. So I'm really excited about this upcoming season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody. But yeah, nothing regular. It's just the same old for me. Follow me, Swipa can. Find me everywhere across all platforms.
Excellent. And as for you, our dear listeners, I want to thank you for listening. I will see you next week with another batch of great guests. So until then, be healthy, be loving, be safe, and don't forget to mention to your friends and family your team is the NBA champion. So, idemo na Geci.